Yeah. So the other implication is just we all should buy Bitcoin.
I know you have the Saylor Academy, but what do you plan to give back to society as you become one of the wealthiest people on the planet? Because I've done the numbers, and I think you will be. It's a no brainer. 10 years from now, you will be like well, you know what you're going to be. But what is your greater mission in life?
Well, I mean,
10 years, 20 years from now.
the plan for the Saylor Academy is converted into a full-fledged degree granting university, and we're on the path to do that. And we'll continue to expand the range of certifications and degrees in every jurisdiction progressively. And that's my sole, right? My primary air. So when I die, whatever I've got will go to finance that mission. And the mission is free education for everybody forever. No, I actually think that we started a stampede of people putting it into the treasury. You couldn't have found a publicly traded company with $5 million of Bitcoin in August of 20. You couldn't have found one. And if you look at what's going on right now, there's got to be 36 or more by the end of this year. And you've gone from less than 5 million, like 1 or 2 million on corporate treasuries. And this is publicly traded companies, not all companies. You've gone from a couple of million on corporate treasuries, right, to 15 billion, to many billion. The thing that's, and Coinbase just said they had like 9,000 institutional accounts. And I talk to private companies all the time. I know lots of private companies that are getting into it.
I know a plumber who has Bitcoin on his balance sheet, 3 employees. Think about that. So there's a lot out there for sure.
Yeah, look, I think in March, if you'd asked me in February of 2020 what I thought about Bitcoin and what I put it on my balance sheet, I would have said I wouldn't even buy it as a private investor, much less as a public fiduciary, right? I mean, and I wouldn't be sure, I'd be like, well, isn't that one of 10,000 cryptos people are all trading? So that's where it was with me, because I didn't have a need to focus on it. You don't need to embrace the idea of a paradigm shift in property or energy or money or currency. You don't need to question basic deep-seated values in the absence of a war, right? There's 2 ways that people change. One is they die, and the other is there's a war, right? And that paradigm shift, there are 2 things that I didn't really buy into. One is the digital transformation of my operations, like not deeply. For example, I would have fired people that did not show up to the office in February of 2020. But by April of 2020, nobody could show up to the office, and we Zoomed every week. And so in a matter of weeks, we went through a decade transformation in our thinking about digital marketing, digital sales, digital operations, et cetera. And I feel like we had the same jarring shift with our balance sheet. In February, my view was, oh, well, I guess we'll get 2-3% interest on our money, and we'll be conservative. And the inflation rate is 2 or 3%. And, Wall Street doesn't maybe understand it, but maybe I'll buy back some stock. Okay. And by April, my worldview was the nominal yield is 0. The inflation rate is minus 20%. I'm going to lose $300 million in the next 36 months if I don't do something. And there's no hope if I continue with the traditional strategy, and I have to take a risk. And so I think that was a jarring thing, and that shook everybody out of their slumber. And now from that point, look, James, I wanted to buy Bitcoin personally, desperately. I wanted to buy as much as I could. It took me 12 weeks to get the account and the KYC to do it. 12 weeks from the point that I desperately wanted to do it. This is an individual.
You're very biting your nails, losing time, afraid it would all be sold out.
Yeah, like anxiety induced, right? And I went and I bought huge amounts at like $9,500 a coin. And then from a corporate point of view, well, it's another 3 months, because companies have all sorts of other, corporate governance issues, the accounting opinion, the legal opinions, the board opinion, the shareholder relations issues. So it's 6 months if you're in a raging hurry. And for me, it was important because more than like half the market cap of the company company was cash. Okay, there aren't many publicly traded companies where half their market cap is cash.
I
And
remember.
so I was sensitive to it. And I had sort of, when my stock got to $70 a share, right? Or we're trading $120 a share and we've got $60 a share in cash, and you're trading a 1 times revenue, you're thinking, I've been forsaken, right? There's not much downside from here. There's only upside. I should do something. So I think that that the first jolt came March 2020, and we started in in August of 2020, we were the first company to put that $250 million buy on the wire. So call that the beginning of year one of major corporate institutional adoption. Now, what's holding people back? A couple of things. One is GAAP accounting. And the number one impediment to a company buying large sums of Bitcoin would be indefinite intangible accounting. Because if I buy $1 billion and it gets cut in half for a day, and then it goes up by a factor of 20, under GAAP accounting, I would show a $500 million operating loss and $500 million on my balance sheet. But under fair value accounting, I would show a $9 billion investment gain, and I would show $10 billion on my balance sheet. So people talk about volatility being a problem, but you've got different types of volatility. You've got fair value or economic volatility, and then you've got accounting or optical volatility. The optical volatility of the accounting is much more pernicious to a public company with a pristine GAAP, P&L, and balance sheet. And in an institutional environment where people judge you based upon your beauty, like based upon your conventional behavior, when you want to buy anything internationally, and then you've got the Bitcoin. And if I was smart, I would have 1 month of expenses in the strongest currency, 1 day of expenses in the weakest currency, and the rest of my life savings in the asset. And Bitcoin is the strongest asset. Now, there may be other assets. Maybe they'll tokenize the S&P index, or they'll tokenize, French stock exchange companies, or they'll tokenize other forms of property. But I think what's pretty clear is for the 6 billion people in the Western world, the dollar will rise to the top as the medium of exchange, and the Bitcoin will rise to the top as the store of value. And it's a logical stable point, because you can trade dollars with anybody in the world. Everybody's built dollars into their retail systems, and there's no taxable event, right? So there's no tax issue of sending you money or receiving money from you. I think, and also dollars are depreciating at 15, 20% a year, right? And we can debate whether it'll go back to 7% or it'll stay at 15 or 20 or 25, who knows? But dollars are losing value at 1% to 2% a month. Bitcoin's accreting in value, and pesos are losing value at 3 or 4% a month. The news today about Turkish lira, it's collapsing. It's certainly double the rate of the dollar, and the bolivar is collapsing at 4%, 5% a month.
Have you thought about the conversion of, from the petrodollar to what I call the petro Bitcoin, if there is such a thing? Like if you look at what Iran is doing, what Russia wants to do, get off the dollar, etc., do you believe there will be a movement towards denominating energy in Bitcoin or some other type of crypto or CBDC down?
It's an interesting subject. I feel like, it's back to this general idea of, well, are you going to sell Teslas for Bitcoin or not? Are you going to sell whatever you sell for Bitcoin? It captures the imagination of a lot of people, and from a marketing point of view, it generates a lot of sparks and excitement. But it seems to me like a better idea would be, instead of trying to sell you a barrel of oil for Bitcoin, a better idea would be take all my money and buy Bitcoin. Like convert your entire balance sheet to Bitcoin, right? For if you have $50 billion and it's sitting in dollars and sovereign debt, I think the bigger idea will be, what happens when I take $100 billion of debt, credit instruments, and I sell it for dollars, and then I take the dollars and I swap them for Bitcoin, and I put $100 billion of Bitcoin on my balance. So I think it's pretty clear that Bitcoin is the universal monetary standard of value. It's the universal store of value.